Built in 1925 as an apartment hotel, the Miriam has long served as a refuge in Uptown. Over the years, it has been a halfway house and later a shelter and soup kitchen for Chicagoans in need. At another point in its life, it provided seniors with stable housing. Located in the Sheridan Park Historic District, the building was included in the National Register of Historic Places in 1985, then acquired by Lakefront SRO, our predecessor organization, in 1991, and was last renovated that same year. So for almost 30 years now, the Miriam has met a critical need in Uptown for safe, stable, and affordable homes, providing Chicagoans who had experienced homelessness and individuals with disabilities with the stability and support they needed to pursue their goals. With the renovation of the building that we're celebrating today, it's a certainty that the Miriam will now continue to provide stable, high-quality housing and vital supportive services to Chicagoans for decades to come. Each of the apartments in the building has been updated to include its own bathroom and kitchen. The entire building is now air-conditioned for the first time in its nearly century-long history of the building, a much welcomed improvement in the quality of life for the residents. On the ground floor, the Miriam now includes a computer lab, a fitness room, a redesigned community space, and a space for resident storage. Together, these updates have greatly improved the quality of life for the residents who call the Miriam home. In fact, the residents themselves have contributed to the effort. Through a partnership with Architreasures, a nonprofit that specializes in transforming public spaces through art, residents had the opportunity to create a clay relief artwork throughout the building. And you'll notice these as you see, as you'll go through the virtual tour. So every piece of clay relief artwork on the walls was done by a resident of the Miriam. Despite the transformation that has taken place at the Miriam, many of the historic features that make the building special, like the front facade and original hardwood floors, remain. I think this is what historic rehab should look like everywhere. It's been modernized, but it has stayed close to its roots and its original conception. The completion of any project that preserves or expands the supply of affordable homes is a cause for celebration, because it represents a victory in one of the most pressing challenges we face throughout this country, the lack of quality housing for low and moderate income Americans. At the Miriam, there's even more cause for celebration, as the building happens to be located in a neighborhood where the number of affordable housing options has dwindled dramatically over the years that the building has been in our portfolio as gentrification has taken hold. The renovation of the Miriam underscores the importance of preserving high quality, affordable housing in asset-rich neighborhoods like Uptown. And it stands as an example that residents in a permanent supportive housing property can be full participants in their communities, not only enjoying the benefits, but also taking an active part in weaving the fabric that makes and holds together a diverse and healthy neighborhood. Again, thank you to everyone who made today possible. And thank you again for joining us in this celebration. I hope you're going to enjoy the virtual tour we're about to go on. Thank you.
Back in April of 2019, all the Miriam residents were relocated to other apartment buildings that they stayed in for a whole year. So that was challenging in itself, and that was, pre-pandemic.
I couldn't wait to get back here. I just couldn't wait to just have my own space.
The Miriam apartment building has 66 units. It is permanent supportive housing for single adults. All of our residents were previously homeless. This is a historical building. The architectural details, they were able to preserve those.
The makeover is beautiful. It really is.
Now everybody has their own kitchen, their own private bathroom. They now have a computer lab, a fitness room.
Since I have came back, you know, they always have been there for me. They always tell me, if you need anything and whatever we can help you with, we there to support you. They always have been like that.
Charlotte has been a resident here for 10 years. She is actually one of our community health workers, assisting residents with any kind of health need, from like making doctor's appointments to even going on doctor's appointments with them.
I like, you know, interacting with the tenants, talking with them, listening to their situations. You know, I just always wanted to be a service. Things started to change in a good and a bad way because I was still struggling with the substance abuse. I had isolated myself from my family, from my friends, and it was like I was in a dark place. It led me up to an overdose of heroin. That was my spiritual awakening. I cried out to God of my understanding, and I'm just so grateful that He allowed me to live again.
You know, our residents have been through a lot, and just to see the ones that are resilient and able to uplift the other residents.
Mercy Housing have made a big change in my life with all the resources that they have here. I love my new apartment, just enough room for me. You know, and they just give me a chance to have my little space, you know, and just, you know, do me.
Thank you, Cara and Charlotte, for sharing. That was really moving. And thank you to all the partners who made that beautiful building possible. While our residents and staff form a supportive community within the walls of the Miriam Apartments, they are also members of the broader community. Representing the Uptown community, James Cappleman is Alderman of the 46th Ward of the City of Chicago. A former teacher, social worker, and healthcare nonprofit leader, Alderman Cappleman has spent his career fighting for social justice. Please join me in welcoming Alderman Cappleman.
Thank you so much, Liz. And I didn't realize that the Miriam was named after a former Franciscan sister. I actually came to Chicago as a Franciscan monk. That's what brought me here, studying for the priesthood. And when I left the order, I decided to become a social worker. My very first job was working at TIA, Travelers Immigrants Aid, which is now Heartland Alliance. First worked with refugees, but then I worked with people experiencing homelessness who also had HIV, who also had an experience of injecting drug use, and who also were experiencing mental illness. And many of those individuals I helped provide housing. It was in the Uptown community. That's how I really came to know this area and later moved here because I loved it so much. But affordable housing is incredibly difficult to do. So hats off to the Lakefront, to Mercy Housing for doing this. It's the financing is now much more expensive to do than ordinary market rate housing. A lot of the affordable housing that exists across the city is naturally occurring affordable housing. And that's where Uptown has suffered a lot. We've lost a lot of that. A lot of it due, ironically, to city ordinances that were passed to protect housing. The life safety ordinance that was passed over 15 years ago put a lot of mandates on the naturally occurring affordable housing, like the chateau, the Norman, the Lawrence House, and the Lorelei, where they had to do some extensive renovations. And to do that, they had to empty it out. And now those places are no longer naturally occurring affordable housing. So it is a task that we have to grapple with as a city, because of affordable housing is just skyrocketing everywhere. The reality, though, is that it is much cheaper for us to provide free subsidized housing to an individual than to have them remain on the streets, because their healthcare costs quadruple. And so I've had some extended discussions with the mayor about this, and our new state senator, Mike Simmons, and Greg Harris, they know this as well. So our task is to work with Mercy Housing and other interested people to do everything we can. It's the least that we can do. So I'm honored to be here, and I want to thank Mercy Housing for the incredible job they're doing to meet the needs of those who need it most. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Cappleman. Next, we have a message from Senator Dick Durbin. First elected to the Senate in 1996, the senior senator from the state of Illinois is committed to supporting affordable housing.
This is Senator Dick Durbin, and I'd like to congratulate all of you at Mercy Housing Lakefront on the 1-year anniversary of the Miriam Apartments. As you know, the past year has been a really tough time for our nation. The COVID-19 pandemic has shown us all the aspects of our society that are broken, but it didn't break us. While the pandemic might have impacted our ability to cut the ribbon for last year's grand reopening, we're here today. Constructed in 1925, Miriam Apartments began as an apartment hotel for seniors. In 1991, the property was acquired by Lakefront SRO, which would go on to become Mercy Housing Lakefront. Last year, Mercy Housing successfully renovated the property, all while preserving common areas in the 66 units of supportive housing. These 66 units will now be affordable housing units available for the most vulnerable people for the next 3 decades. As we all know, our nation is in the midst of an affordable housing crisis, a crisis that existed even prior to the onset of the pandemic. In Illinois, for every 10 extremely low-income households, there are just 4 affordable housing units available. Every American family deserves a safe, healthy place to call home. I'm pleased to say that it's exactly what Mercy Housing Lakefront is offering with the Miriam Apartments. We need to invest in our nation's housing, fund affordable housing programs, expand federal tax incentives, build more quality, affordable housing. I'll continue to work and advocate for policies that reach that goal nationwide and certainly in Illinois. Thanks again for being here today. Congratulations to Mercy Housing Lakefront.
Thank you, Senator Durbin. Next, we have James Cunningham. As Deputy Regional Administrator for HUD's Midwest Regional Office, Jim is responsible for coordinating the delivery of HUD programs in Region 5's 6 states: Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Minnesota, Ohio, and Wisconsin. He oversees the operations of 7 HUD field offices throughout the region, managing White House initiatives, secretarial priorities, and achievement of HUD agency priority goals. Please join me in welcoming Jim.
Good morning, and thank you, Liz and Mercy Housing, for the invitation. And I'd like to acknowledge President Mark Angelini and his Lakefront team, as well as Alderman Cappleman for his remarks, as well, and Senator Durbin. But on behalf of President Biden and HUD Secretary Marcia Fudge, I want to congratulate Mercy Housing and all the partners on this 1-year anniversary of preserving affordable, permanent supportive housing. I'd like to also recognize our HUD multifamily team that helped make this possible. Our Midwest Director, Dan Burke, and his team who are with us today. Elizabeth Gear was the underwriter. Ace Rasul was the construction analyst. Gloria McDonald will be your senior account executive, and her supervisor, Lillian Fuentes, our branch chief that oversees our asset management. Dan sends his regrets that he can't be with us today due to another commitment, but he He wanted me to remind you that he was on the founding board of Lakefront SRO and has fond memories of Sister Miriam and her passion for social justice. So Dan sends his regrets. But I just want to say that this is a tremendous day to celebrate the historic preservation of affordable housing for those most in need. HUD is committed to, just as Senator Durbin said in his video, preserving affordable housing and creating communities of opportunity for folks. So everything about the Miriam reflects our values and what we're trying to do. Just want to take a quick how we got involved. So when Mercy acquired the property in 1991 was our first take at assisting the residents through our McKinney-Vento homeless assistance programs. That opportunity through that funding back in 1991, which also happens to be the same year I started at HUD, hard to believe, but allowed us to do this historic conversion. We were able to finance this through an FHA loan of nearly $3 million. Other financing included low-income housing tax credits, historic tax credits, and additional resources that basically led to an investment of nearly $130,000 per unit. So as the Alderman said, it's not easy doing affordable housing, and this proves it. But we also were able to convert the subsidy that we provided in our homeless assistance programs through the rental assistance demonstration program that allowed us to convert that subsidy into long-term, as Senator Durbin said, 3-decade-long permanent affordable supportive housing and a housing assistance payment contract that will provide these residents with affordable housing for the next 30 years. So we're also proud to know that these people can live in an integrated setting in a neighborhood and contribute to society. We're providing Lakefront, our Mercy is providing social services. So we're here today to celebrate the 1-year anniversary. I hope that everyone that has enjoyed the last year of residing at the Miriam, and we are just proud to be a partner with Mercy and the city of Chicago to make this opportunity possible. So thank you and congratulations to Mercy Housing, but most important to the residents that get to call the Miriam home. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Jim. Debbie Burkart is the National Vice President of Supportive Housing at National Equity Fund, a leading nonprofit syndicator of low-income housing tax credits. She has overseen the acquisition or underwriting of more than $1 billion in tax credit equity for special needs projects. Most importantly for us here today, Debbie started her career in Chicago with the Miriam Apartments and was a part of this most recent iteration. Please join me in welcoming Debbie.
Thank you and welcome, everyone. Neff and I have had a very long relationship with Mercy Housing Lakefront, starting with the Miriam Apartments nearly 30 years ago. When I started at Neff, I was handed the Miriam file to close in 1992. So I was just behind Jim in terms of starting my career. In 1992, I just wanted to kind of do a time warp history back, is when the tax credit industry was not a permanent program. It was just on a 6-month extension. We were still waiting for the fall election for it to become permanent. And supportive housing as a term was just being coined. Several SROs in Uptown and the North Side were primarily flop houses versus safe permanent housing. This was one of the first to turn the tide. And that was because Mercy Housing Lakefront created a strategy to set up a historic district in Uptown to leverage the historic credits and tax credit deals. And it was a new concept. Miriam Apartments was a contributing element in the historic district. And we see 30 years later, it is a cornerstone project that was a contributing element in the Uptown's community's revitalization. It's enhanced its fabric, it's stabilized property values, and it created permanent homes for homeless women who were struggling on Chicago's streets. Mercy Housing Lakefront's more than a roof philosophy, battled naysayers in the affordable housing finance world back then, because they took charge and they adapted affordable housing tools, not originally conceived for housing the homeless. This deal fell really early into that category of trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, because we were trying to use the tax credit program for units that had shared bathrooms. We were targeting women, and a lot of people said it couldn't be done, and it was done. NEF was an early advocate of permanent supportive housing investments, and it became my lifelong career. In partnership with committed permanent supportive housing developers like Mercy Housing Lakefront, we grew this sub-industry into today, almost every project is now trying to set aside a few units to house the homeless and the disabled. NEF is so happy to partner again with Mercy, and this time with CIBC, who was integral because of certain rules in the tax credit program. They basically allowed us to take advantage of the acquisition credit. We were been now able to upgrade Miriam, create complete studios. We've seen, from the shared SROs, AC. We had terrible tragedies in the 90s with the heat waves, and now we have better configured community rooms to provide services. So now it's preserved for the next few decades as a safe haven. I wanted to say congratulations to the entire Mercy team. A shout out to Carolyn Reed, who's the project manager, of course, under Mark and Felix leadership. And I hope I'm invited back to Miriam's resyndication 15 years from now. So thanks again, everyone, and congratulations.
Thank you, Debbie. So the Debbie and Jim and Alderman Cappleman have all alluded to the complex financing that goes behind these projects. And we also saw with our tour video, a lot of the physical infrastructure of affordable housing, the art on the walls, the now changing from shared bathrooms to everybody has their own bathroom, the great community spaces. All of that is important and critical to affordable housing, to permanent supportive housing. But a key component that makes permanent supportive housing supportive is the resident services. So I've asked Felix Matlock, our Regional Vice President of Resident Services, to join us today and share a few words about resident services.
Thanks, Elizabeth. And thanks all who have joined us today. This is, in fact, a festive occasion. While this may be last in talking about services, it really is first. Housing coupled with services, moves an individual, to stability and creates a platform for them to have a life change. And as you heard from Charlotte, the opportunity to be in stable housing provides that platform that you can really get a hold and begin to change your life differently. In our world, this is truly more than a roof, in working with our residents. The constant in our services world is change, and as such, we are called upon, to be consistent, and innovative in responding to the needs of our residents, of which there are many, but where we begin, and it's essential that we start off by really understanding, the life space that the individual has lived, and that then helps them determine what it is that are priorities for them as they move forward beyond beyond being in a safe, consistent and affordable housing unit. We do a lot, as I said, housing is essential and certainly a first step towards stability, but a range of services, options is also essential. In fact, even critical. While I personally have only been with Mercy Housing Lakefront, 14 years, I did have the opportunity to work with Lakefront SRO for 10 years prior to that with another organization, and certainly know the rich history and innovative and commitment service approach that Lakefront SRO, embraced as it moved into Mercy Housing, Lakefront. They brought with them kind of a vision and a commitment to, an organization that was innovative and in fact transformative. And, through the work of our current staff and commitment of our board and our other senior leadership, we've been able to continue moving, the organization forward and addressing the many and varied needs, of our residents. We pride ourselves in being a strength-based organization and helping our residents see the strengths that they have within them rather than the challenges that they have experienced throughout their life. And we believe that by approaching it from a strength-based perspective, that it gives them, greater strength as they move forward and begin to address, their needs cooperatively along with our staff. We cannot do it alone. We don't attempt to do it alone. We attempt to be, a pathway for our residents, to embrace their own positions and move themselves forward. Our approach starts with assessments, and that assessment is so important because it helps, again, the individual to see, where they have been, where they are now, and then help them set goals for the future. And it also gives us a sense as staff, a sense of, of what resources we may need to connect them, to that plan that they develop. Housing and health are essential. I think everyone has heard about the connection between health and housing. We really are committed to that and working collaboratively with our health partners, to identify and address the needs that have been identified by our residents. Case in point, I think, is that you did see Charlotte earlier. Charlotte is one of our community health workers. We have a community health worker program that is driven by individuals who live within our properties and service our residents within our properties, although they don't service residents within the property that they live. And they're so valuable to us and so essential because of the lived experience that they bring, and gives them the ability to talk, to a resident where a resident is and promote a healthy lifestyle or attempting to gain a healthy lifestyle. Along with that, we have our annual Feel Better campaign or competition that we take all of our properties and we put them into, give them the opportunity, I should say, give them the opportunity to set their own health goals by property, and then the individuals work and embrace those things and compete property by property. Our health services are also available on site through this pandemic. We have had our community health partners through our FQHC partners, actually come in and do COVID testing, in collaborations with some of those. They've come in and done on-site, vaccinations along with the City of Chicago's Department of Health. And so we've made that really accessible and available, to our residents, along with encouraging them, to move forward and become vaccinated and become safe and healthier as they go forward. Food and nutrition, reducing those negatives is a part of what we do. We find that as an essential health option as well. Other services, are to help our residents facilitate access to benefits that they, have available and may not know that. Of course, that would be health insurance, and other kinds of supports that are out there and available to them. Throughout this last year and before, but certainly going forward, establishing services through a virtual, methodology, making sure that people have things like access to the computer labs when it becomes safer, giving them Chromebooks, that we acquired at the beginning of the pandemic, and then helping them, educating them, to this technological world that they now live in that they may not have embraced, in the past. And then I think the last two things that are really important is that we really work to make sure that our residents have a voice, and that the company, that Mercy Housing Lakefront, hears that voice, and they are an integral part of our designing services responses to them. And we do that through, various community connection opportunities, as well as having a seat on our board and on our health, housing, and program committee. And then lastly, we certainly want to get people housed, but we want to make sure that they stay housed. And so we work collaboratively from a services standpoint, with our property management company, to ensure that any challenges that arise that may jeopardize a person's housing, are addressed and reduced so that in fact the person does not lose their housing. So I think that in reflection, maybe thinking about going all the way back to the Debbie days, maybe, I think about, how impressed I was then with, the wisdom of the individuals who were part of the Lakefront, SRO operation, and their vision around what should be done in terms of housing and services, and stay committed to that today. And I'm really honored, to be a part of that, that early vision and commitment, and just so happy to be a part of and responsible for working with a highly skilled staff, who provide opportunities and hope for our residents.
Very good. Thank you, Felix. And that's our motto, live in hope. And certainly housing is healthcare. I've heard many doctors who care for the same low to moderate income population that we seek to serve say that if there was one thing that they could wave a wand and get, it would be for the ability to write a prescription for their patients to access safe, affordable, high quality housing. And that in itself would make a tremendous impact in the well-being of their patients. And we continue to message that point in any way we can constantly. Before we wrap up today's celebration, I would like to recognize several of today's speakers and other individuals and organizations that really, without them, our work and our mission impact would not be possible. We're grateful for their support, and we're grateful because it enables us, as I say, to help transform lives and to revitalize neighborhoods. Thank you to Alderman James Cappleman of the 46th Ward in Chicago, where the Miriam is located. Jim, thank you not only for your longstanding support, but really taking the time to get to know Mercy Housing and to understand our mission approach. And we're also grateful for your longstanding commitment to seeking a more just and equitable life in Chicago for all. Senator Dick Durbin, thank you for your longstanding support for those in need and for a more just society. I don't know that there's an elected official in Washington who has been as consistent and as longstanding in voicing for those that don't have a voice and for looking for meaningful policy solutions, again, to enable us to have greater justice and equity in our society. Jim Cunningham, Deputy Regional Administrator at HUD, we're grateful to you and your entire team. Please give Dan Burke our best regards, and we certainly do know about his longstanding history with the Miriam. And again, we thank you and your local team. You're such an essential partner to everything that we do, and we're grateful for that. Debbie Burkart, National VP of Supportive Housing for the National Equity Fund. Thank you. Your remarks really said it all. You've been in this industry since its inception. And again, NEF and you are such wonderful partners, again, because you've really taken the time to understand what it is that we do and the impacts that we aspire to. And you have been very good in helping us with the reality that we often face. And every time we do it, I'm just overjoyed of how we fit that square peg into the round hole. And now I would like to list really the financial and development partners by name. It's a bit of a long list, and I know you saw it scrolling at the beginning, but it's important that they all be recognized. It gives you a sense of the magnitude of support and the scale of and extent of the partnerships that we need to do what it is that we do, and we're grateful for each of them. The A. Montgomery Ward Foundation, Applegate and Thorne Thompson, CIBC Bank, the City of Chicago, Clock Tower Tax Credits, ComEd's Affordable Housing New Construction Program, the Federal Home Loan Bank of Chicago's Affordable Housing Program, the Illinois Housing Development Authority, the John and Kathleen Schreiber Foundation, Landon Bone Baker Architects, Lightingale Group, Lynn Mathis, McCrosty Historic Advisors, Molina Healthcare, the National Equity Fund, PNC Bank, Thresholds, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, Urban Relocation Services. Again, without this partnership and their collective ability to work with us to solve complicated problems, to help us be creative and to exercise a vision, preserving the Miriam for future generations would not have been possible. So we're grateful. Also, my thanks to Carolyn Reed for her outstanding work as Mercy Housing's staff developer for the Miriam renovation, and to Liz Dunn and Taronda Hudson for putting together today's event. Last but absolutely not least, I want to thank the site staff at the Miriam, Cara Weiner and Shaheen McVeigh from our Mercy Housing Lakefront Resident Services staff, as well as Mary Harth and Fred Bradley of Mercy Housing Management, and Michael Rice of Mercy Housing Asset Management. They collectively make our mission impact possible each and every day, and I thank them for the hard work they do at the site each and every day. In closing, I'd also like to recognize something else that I think we should be celebrating today, and that is stewardship. We've called today's event Maintaining a Mission of Mercy. And think about what that really means at this property and what it really means, I think, in general. There has been a chain of individuals and organizations stretching over many generations that were committed to providing those who have been marginalized by society, yet who also hold a fierce determination to survive, and you saw that with Charlotte, to provide them a chance to heal, to live in dignity, regain control over their lives, and by doing so, have a chance to thrive. In these times of unprecedented challenges, let's honor all of those who started and maintained this mission of mercy through economic depression, world war, and the many disruptions that have confronted us really throughout the start of this century, the last 2 decades. You know, as Margaret Mead said, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Because there will always be a need for the mission of mercy, let's continue to be the change that brings dignity, hope, and life to those afflicted by poverty, addiction, and homelessness. Thanks again to everyone who joined us here today. Have a great afternoon, and we'll see you soon.